Blue. Welcome to today's session. For those of you not here last week, my name is Anna. I'm a Tibetan Buddhist nun trained in the Gelugpa tradition of the Tibetan Buddhist philosophy as taught by the great master Venerable Geshe Acharya Thubten Loden, the gentleman just behind me. He's the author of the marvellous course book, Meditations on the Path to Enlightenment. I've also had the good fortune to attend teachings by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So first of all, we'll begin today's session with a light offering, and this is for Mrs. Joyce Brooks, who passed away in New Zealand, in Auckland, earlier this month. Joyce was the mother of one of our longest time students, Paul Sokolich, and to do this life offering, we make the request to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that Joyce has a marvellous rebirth and meets with happiness and joy in her next life. For anyone who knows Paul, who is very well known amongst our community, he has asked for no flowers or gifts, etc., just our prayers for her well-being. Thank you. So we'll begin our session today with a short guided meditation, breathing meditation, to withdraw our mind from the activities of the day, from the activities of the afternoon, whatever we're planning in the future week, so that we bring our concentration to this precious time. So if we get ourselves into a good posture with a nice straight back, relaxed shoulders, right hand sitting in our left hand with the tips of the thumbs touching, head slightly forward, elbows away from the torso, the tongue resting on the roof of the mouth just behind the top of the teeth, which helps prevent the build-up of saliva. And then we just withdraw our attention and focus very gently and peacefully on the movement of the breath. You can either do that as the breath travels up and down the nostrils, or we may want to focus on our diaphragm, and some people prefer the upper chest. Whichever's the most comfortable for you, suggests that once you've chosen one of these, you stay with that. And then we just watch the rising and falling of the breath, withdrawing our thoughts and any observation of sensations or sounds, withdrawing all of those just for a few moments. This is called Stabilization Meditation or single-pointed meditation. It's very, very useful for building our concentration and bringing a calm and more peaceful approach. We find ourselves still having thoughts or hearing the sound of the birds or other sounds and sensations, we'll just let those go very gently. No pushing, no sharp reactions, just gently letting them go and bringing our mind back to the breath. And we can do that repeatedly till our mind settles. Remembering that this is a learned skill and it may take us a few goes or a fair few goes to develop the skill. When we do, it's very, very beneficial. Nothing of any importance, just for this very short time, just the movement up and down or in and out of the breath. Bringing ourselves to this present moment. And when we're ready, we can release our concentration. Should just mention that the light offering that was made for Joyce Brooks at the beginning of the session was in fact made by the Tibetan Buddhist Society. So last week we explored the great value of learning about the meaning of impermanence. A quick recap, we learned that when we listen to teachings on the deeper meaning of change, think about them carefully and then meditate, things just won't faze us as much. Our experience of life will be less dramatic, less up and down as circumstances change as they naturally will. We will accept that change is a natural part of life. Whatever meets, then later parts. Whatever rises, then falls, just as our breath. Whatever joins together will then disperse. So this pandemic that we're experiencing at this moment, just as happened with the Spanish flu, SARS and Ebola, will pass. So with remembering impermanence, we will be able to remain steady and stable. And better able to navigate any changes that arise, which is naturally of great benefit to ourselves and also anybody that we encounter, whether in our family or in our workplace or wherever we are. So today's topic is love and compassion for a happier life, the joy of love and compassion. And this topic was chosen for the second talk in the series, caring for self, caring for others, because transforming our thinking and attitudes to more loving and compassionate approach are relevant to this era and can bring about profound changes to the mind. So love and compassion are very special practices in Tibetan Buddhism. And when the minds of love and compassion grow, they become the sources of peace and joy for both ourselves and others. So embracing Buddhism's reflections, or the Buddha's reflections on love and compassion, we can, in fact, transform our lives away from the experiences of adversity and sadness and limitation, moving towards more relaxed approaches, easier relationships, more tranquility, and better concentration and clarity. So while we're exploring the deeper meaning of love and compassion, it can also reveal our own approach to happiness. So the Buddha explained from what he discovered that underlying all human activity is the quest for more happiness and less suffering. And by happiness we mean calm and peace, a lack of disturbance, a certain stability, a feeling of warm-heartedness. So this value of love and compassion towards ourselves and as well towards ourselves and also to others is especially relevant in such turbulent times. His Holiness said in recent years that the ultimate source of a happy life is warm-heartedness. Even animals display some form of compassion, and when it comes to human beings, compassion, His Holiness explained, combined with intelligence, can be combined with intelligence, so that's even more powerful, much more powerful. And so through this application of reason, compassion can be extended to all 7.6 billion human beings and can be extended to all forms of life. So destructive emotions and destructive aspects of our persona are related to ignorance, while compassion is helpful and more related to intelligence. Consequently, and the outtake from this is that it can be learned, can be taught, and it can be learned. So we don't need to feel that we're stuck inside our present levels of compassion and love and kindness. We can actually think about these subjects quite deeply and learn to develop more love and compassion. So love, let's have a look at love. Love in the Buddhist tradition is not quite as we might understand it in Western countries. So one English dictionary definition calls it an intense feeling of deep affection. So Geshe Loden, in his Path text, explains that the Buddhist view, as we might understand it, transcends ordinary everyday love because it is directed towards the vast expanse of all living creatures and not just focused on those close to us. So we have many different interpretations of love in the West, some wonderful, such as the unconditional love of parents for their children, love of leaders for their communities, the love of learning. However, sometimes when people talk about love, it is more about their own needs. When we say, I love it, it can mean I need, or it can mean I want you to be happy. But if we're honest, there's quite often a few needs in there too, like some sort of exchange or contract. Often when we talk about love, it is most likely a mixture of those, some altruistic and more self-focused concerns, And there's also some more self-focused concerns, such as our security, our comfort, feeling good about some aspects of ourselves, and appearance to others, how we might appear to others. So there's many, many different computations of this word love and the emotions, some beautiful and some afflictive that arise. It's a complex and often quite tangled subject. So we need to ideally carefully check our thinking and attitudes sitting underneath our expression of love. Is it special, heartfelt, altruistic? We have so many loving relationships with our families, our children, our parents, our partners, our good friends. All the different types of love have their own qualities and resonance. There is every gradation from the self-focus of I love, really meaning I need or I'm attached to a very pure altruistic love of the person who really, genuinely, in a heartfelt way, wants other people's happiness and works continuously to achieve that. And then there's millions of nuances in between. But if we really want more peace and happiness for ourselves and others, it is the warm-hearted love that truly wishes for others' happiness that we need to cultivate and is referred to in developing our mind within Buddhist practice. So when we embrace this kind of altruistic love towards everyone else, all sorts of things can happen. So we can see that most clearly when we look at other people, when we see in the behaviour some of the world's great loving people. People have worked tirelessly for each other, such as Mother Teresa, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Nelson Mandela, Gandhi, and many think President Obama is like this too. So not only are they recognised as great humanitarians, they seem so at peace and relaxed in themselves. So this beautiful interpretation of love, giving happiness and love to all others, can be cultivated in ourselves through analysis and deep reflection in our meditation. Buddhists call this type of all-embracing love great love. So great love is a heartwarming love that embraces all beings without any discrimination. So great love is defined as the wish for all living beings without exception to have happiness. And that includes every living being, every living creature, our friends, our enemies, our neighbours, those very close to us, those we're not so close to, those we don't even know, strangers, people and beings, living beings that we have never met, people in other countries, people we will never meet, people we don't even want to meet. So it's really a very all-embracing kind of love. This is not a small goal. Great love is a big, warm-hearted mind, deeply wishing for the happiness of others. And it has a great deal of qualities to it, such as a very equal approach. If you've had the opportunity to be close to a person who has this kind of love for others, they treat everybody the same. They treat, whether they're dealing with prime ministers or leaders or somebody they just met, maybe it's the bank teller or they're in a crowd and they see different people. They have the same kind of warm-heartedness and engagement with all of those people in the same kind of way, whatever the circumstances, wherever they meet people, however they engage with people. It is very beautiful to watch a person who has those kind of qualities, treating everybody and every creature in the same kind of way. So through this loving kindness, through this great love, they develop, and we can develop, greater closeness and thinking of them as very dear and very precious, like in the manner of such as a parent who is thinking about their only daughter or son, not wanting them to experience even the slightest bit of adversity or difficulty. So when, for example, the daughter or son is in danger or is unwell, the parent cannot remain distant and detached. The parent will do anything to ease that child's suffering and to remove her problems. And the parent will do that extremely naturally and without any thought that it is a burden on his or her time, because heartfelt love gives rise to very strong compassion. So this is the type of feeling that we want to cultivate to bring the kind of joy and happiness that we can experience and others can experience through our lives. So like this, when we have a deep and genuine feeling of love for all living beings and all living creatures, we will feel very close to them and think all of them as precious as if they were all of our children. And this is described as a very joyful feeling. And you can certainly see it on the face of people like His Holiness and in their approach to people. So the renowned 8th century Buddhist monk Shantideva, who was an extraordinary person himself and has written many great verses that are so pertinent to life in his own time, but also universally for centuries since. He famously said that all suffering comes from the wish for ourselves to be happy, and all joy comes from the wish for others to be happy. That does not mean that we need to sacrifice our own happiness. It's an underlying attitude, it's an approach. So His Holiness explained on this count, for some people the idea of compassion entails a complete disregard for themselves, or even a sacrifice of their own interests. And so this is not necessary. In fact, we first of all have to wish to be happy ourselves. If we don't love ourselves in this way, how can we really love others? This is especially true in these difficult times. For example, if we work and we feel like, that we want to put out to this degree, we work 20 hours a day looking after others, and we forget to eat properly or rest properly, take some time out to just relax and unwind and care for our own needs. We are no good for ourselves and no good for others. This is the stuff of burnout. So what we really need to do is to check up on our own underlying attitude. If we spend the whole time thinking about planning and meeting our own needs, we are unlikely to be happy. If our thinking, planning and activity is broadened out from there to take into account our own needs, but also wider needs, then we are likely to have a more peaceful outcome. Life will become more meaningful. Okay, so let's explore the concept of compassion. The companion of love in Buddhist teachings, or Tibetan Buddhist teachings, or Mahayana Buddhist teachings especially, is compassion. So compassion is wishing to free others from their suffering. So why compassion? So compassion has so many different benefits under two main headings: benefit for others and benefit for ourselves. So many great teachers have devoted their whole lives to studying and teaching compassion. One famous Indian teacher, Chandrakirti, was a strong advocate. He broke the normal traditional path of teaching in Tibetan Buddhism and said that he believed it was best to emphasize compassion at the beginning of the teachings and the middle and the ends of one's meditation practice. At the beginning, he said, it's like the seed of our spiritual growth. In the middle, it motivates us to gain all the qualities that we need for the seed to flourish and grow into a beautiful plant or tree. And at the end, it is like the companion of a great special person, helping everyone, doing everything possible in a very creative and insightful manner to remove suffering continuously. I remember Geshe Loden, who was a tremendously compassionate person, once remarking that very compassionate people look for opportunities to help others, and this in turn creates tremendous pleasure and happiness themselves. Amongst modern teachers, the wonderful Thubten the principal translator for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who helped establish teaching of compassion at Stanford University. That course is now taught all over the world. Research at this course, the Centre for Altruism and Compassion Education, shows that compassion training, which includes loving kindness meditation, to be very effective in boosting altruism as well as improving physical and emotional well-being. Therefore, we are helping ourselves and helping others at the same time, and this is shown through evidence. According to these researchers, the reason that a compassionate lifestyle leads to greater psychological well-being may be explained by the fact that the act of giving appears to be pleasurable, if not more so than the act of receiving. So the French scientist turned Tibetan Buddhist monk, his name is Matthew Ricard, has made it part of his life's work to show the value of altruism and its connection to happiness. He said in an interview that a 2007 brain scanning study by neuroscientists at the National Institutes of Health asked volunteers to think about a scenario in which they would either give money away to a good cause or keep it for themselves. The researchers apparently were absolutely stunned to find that imagining giving the money away to those in need activated a primal part of the brain that normally lights up in response to food or to physical pleasures. This suggests that morality is not only natural to us, but it is also deeply pleasurable. It suggests that the tendency to care for others is indeed innate to human nature, that we indeed have the Buddha nature that Shakyamuni Buddha discovered and explained nearly 2,600 years ago. So based on both this modern research and the Buddhist theory and ancient wisdom, Matthew Ricard sees altruism as an important antidote to any form of unhappiness. So what Geshe Loden has said in Meditations on the Path to Enlightenment, when we see their suffering, we will have truly great compassion, he explained. So what does this mean, this freedom from suffering? So Geshe explained that the resultant sense or feeling of great compassion achieved by this very deep wish to free all living beings from adversities and suffering is very liberating. So one of the important practices to train our mind in compassion is to understand the different forms of suffering. From an everyday point of view, we might think that concentrating on the ordeals of others would be difficult or challenging and even depressing, given the many, many challenges in our world and the even greater distress experienced by so many animals and insects and other life forms. So from a Buddhist perspective, Geshe explains that ordinary compassion is the wish for one or more people or other living beings to be free of suffering. Great compassion is the wish that all living beings be free from whatever adversity they experience. We develop this great compassion by cultivating a strong feeling for the freedom of many challenges of living creatures. This focus on freedom from suffering through stabilizing meditation is the core of the practice, which brings empathy, peace, and sometimes joy as we imagine those difficulties being reduced, like freeing a bird or an insect that has been trapped in your house, or helping a young child that has fallen over. If we can recognize suffering and can help that, it also has a transformative impact on our mind. If we think about a time when we helped an animal or a bird or somebody else overcome a situation, think about the feeling, and if we amplify that and continuously help others, then pure joy will come. The whole day is spent doing that. Then we'll have pure joy all of the time. So at the same time, we are genuinely and wisely and logically helping everybody, but we're also maximising our benefit in this world and our usefulness in this world. As His Holiness has said in such a short sentence, be happy, be useful. It's also based on logic, because we come from one big family of interconnected living beings. And if we think like that, their happiness is our happiness too. So it is really useful to become familiar with the many forms of suffering explained in the Path to Enlightenment teachings. So in these pandemic times, several different types of these sufferings are very easy to see. Ill health, aging, loneliness and isolation, change and uncertainty, not always achieving what we desire, not being able to achieve our goals necessarily, and loss of jobs and loved ones, for example. When we reflect on different types of physical and mental problems that we experience, we clearly see how much we want to be rid of them, explains Geshe Loden in the meditations text. So first of all, we can reflect on our own various adversities and how much we want to be rid of them, and then we can reflect on those of people who are close to us, our friends and our family. Then we can even extend that to strangers and think, if I'm having all of this suffering and difficulty and I want to be happy, then my friends will want the same, my family will want the same, then strangers will want the same. And eventually we can understand that that is also extends to all living creatures. No one wants to experience COVID or any other forms of illness. When we focus strongly on developing this kind of empathy and warm-heartedness, then compassion, the wish to free everyone with problems will arrive. That is great compassion, and if we get a sense of that, then we can meditate on that single-pointedly, and it will eventually become part of our persona and part of our mental continuum and become spontaneous. A small example is freeing insects trapped near a window, often flies. They seem so stressed and they're buzzing around madly. And if I manage to capture one with an insect catcher or the like and let them out of the door, they look so joyful and peaceful, flying high into the sky. So we don't always see the relief that we might create by helping others, but that's just a very visible example of giving freedom to a very small insect that has going through a difficult experience of buzzing and wanting to get out of the window. So we can extrapolate that kind of very obvious kind of example to when we help others, we're also freeing them from their own suffering if we can help. So that brings us, what about difficult people or difficult situations? So His Holiness the Dalai Lama says a truly compassionate attitude towards others does not change even if they behave negatively towards us or hurt us. This is definitely not easy to achieve. But one key method that is taught in Tibetan Buddhism is to focus on the behaviour, not the people. Compassion, not judgment. Mahatma Gandhi, the great advocate of non-violence, advised focus on the sin and not the sinner. And, when we're having difficulty with a person who's caused us a lot of harm, been very angry with us, or, handed out of some kind of injustice, this is very, very useful to bring this kind of thinking to mind. Focus on the sin, not the sinner. Focus on the behaviour, not the person. We do that, we develop the space and wisdom and mental dexterity to remain caring towards others, recognising that, like ourselves, they still have a mixture of negative and positive minds. They still have a mixture of happiness and suffering. But while they may have been rude to us, they might have criticised us or hurt us in some other even worse way, it is the action or behaviour that is the problem. It is a habit that they have developed. They still face all the challenges and issues that we face. Their actions at that time, their behaviour at that time may have been incorrect. And in some cases it might need a response, a skillful and measured response. We might ask ourselves what made that person behave in that way. So a lovely quote from a Billy Connolly film that I saw recently, What We Did on Our Holiday, is a nice, relaxed way to look at it. The story was about a modern family, mum, dad and 3 children, and they were visiting Grandpa in Scotland for his 70th birthday. Grandpa had a terminal illness and the parents were trying to hide their plan to divorce. The 3 young children, who knew much more than the parents realised, were struggling to cope with it all. So, chatting with one of the children, the grandpa figure, Billy Connolly, and the grandpa figure, his name was Gordy MacLeod, very gentle. He says, the truth is every human being on this planet is ridiculous in their own way. So we shouldn't judge, we shouldn't fight, because in the end, none of it matters, none of the stuff. So everyone is just like us, experiencing a mixture of happiness and suffering, possessing a mixture of positive and negative minds, being a little bit ridiculous sometimes, as Gordy would say, and therefore remaining worthy of our concern and love. Another example is His Holiness. In spite of losing his country in the 1950s, His Holiness has continuously sought meaningful dialogue and negotiated solution to the Tibetan situation. Continuously meets with so many different groups, or he did pre-COVID with so many different groups of Chinese people, offering them support and advice for a happier life. During a talk on conflict, COVID and compassion, His Holiness received a question from a young Indian woman who wanted to know how to maintain compassion for the perpetrators of injustice. His Holiness reminded her that although the Buddha had talked about such adversity, he spoke even more about its causes. Since none of us seek suffering, we need to avoid the causes. So these are underlying attitudes. So His Holiness suggested that people with no moral principles who make trouble for others are engaging in negative actions that will have unfortunate consequences for them. So he's suggesting that we should be concerned both for these people and for those that they have abused, because this is not a good place to be, to have caused all this trouble. He's referring to the accumulation of negative karma, which is another big topic for another time. The 8th century Indian master Shantideva tells us that our enemy can be our best teacher, because no one else gives us such an opportunity to practice patience. Great Tibetan teachers are another great example. Immediately after losing their country, the very fabric of their extraordinary, special and ancient culture, step by step, some of these great masters completed their studies as exiles in India, rebuilt their lives, learnt new languages, and brought these incredible teachings to so many people in Western countries. Millions of meditation and Buddhist philosophy students in every country have decided to learn more about studies from the great Tibetan teachers as a result. These teachers have never given up their loving and compassionate goal as young people, studying for decades, to become highly learned and meditating, to become the very best version of themselves to help others. Despite losing their country, their extraordinary selflessness, kindness, generosity are based on these very qualities, this very deep love and very deep compassion. And bodhicitta. And so we'll just touch on the subject of bodhicitta. So this is a further stage beyond great love and great compassion, and a very special feature of Tibetan Buddhist studies called bodhicitta. And this is a big subject, and we just have time to touch on it today. It's an attitude of great compassion, wishing to remove the suffering of all others, and the recognition that to be of the greatest benefit, it is really ideal to attain an enlightened mind or become fully awakened, like the Buddha. The Sanskrit term bodhi means enlightenment, and citta means mind. So the etymology of bodhicitta is mind of enlightenment. There are so many benefits of practicing bodhicitta. Two to especially mention here is that all of our wishes will be fulfilled if we practice it well, easily succeeding in so many things that others will find too difficult, and will become, the great bodhicitta practitioner will become a source of peace and love to others. There are two types of bodhicitta. The first is called wishing bodhicitta, and the second is called venturing bodhicitta. Wishing bodhicitta is just as it sounds. We have the thought that the state of enlightenment sounds marvellous to benefit everyone. So we wish this to have this state. Venturing bodhicitta is when we set out on the path to enlightenment and then study and meditate on all the different subjects of the path to enlightenment. So bodhicitta is a practice that can be incorporated into our daily lives. It's very difficult to realise bodhicitta fully, but we can certainly work on it. Efforts to develop a strong bodhicitta motivation for all of our activities will begin to bring significant changes to our mind and to our mental continuum. It's not easy to include all living creatures, humans and all living creatures, as the object of heartfelt love and compassion in all of our motivations and all of our decisions and all of our thinking. That is not an easy thing to do, and to be mindful of that all of the time and to strive for their benefit by attaining enlightenment. Certainly something that we need to try train our minds in, to think differently like this. So at first we will find that our actions tend to remain focused on the narrow self-interest of our lives and the personal peace of liberation. But if we begin to think about the meaning of bodhicitta and begin to think about our motivation for what we do, then it is a really, really useful thing to do. And we can begin that by thinking about the subjects that we talked about earlier of great love and great compassion. As the Buddha said, as Shakyamuni Buddha said, set your heart on doing good. Do it over and over again, and you will be filled with joy. That means developing the minds of love, compassion, generosity, patience, ethics, not harming others, joyous effort, concentration and wisdom. And we'll explore these latter six, which are known as the six perfections, next week. The wonder is that this transformation is something we can all experience if we listen and follow what these great teachers have said, and we follow it very carefully. Many of us think deep down that this can't possibly be us. But even someone who has been very negative and done terrible things in the past can transform themselves with an understanding and the practice of love and compassion. There are stories in Tibetan literature of people who have not just been a little selfish, angry, a thief or a habitual liar, but terrible criminals and murderers who have hurt, damaged and killed many other people. Their misdemeanours have created untold grief, not just to their victims, but especially to themselves. Their negative actions didn't bring the relief, the peace, or even the notoriety that they were hoping for. So usually what negative actions are based on is a very wrong understanding of where one will find relief or peace or more happiness. Just completely incorrect. Their personal pain continued and generally got worse, maybe through guilt, but often disintegration of their connectedness, disintegration of their peace, lack of self-esteem, no peace of mind, lack of popularity, anxiety and pain. They were simply looking for happiness in the wrong place. This can also happen on a much smaller scale through negative approaches such as irritation, petty jealousy, self-focused behaviour. We don't see it at the time, but it is not going to bring us the happiness that we desire. So how can we transform the mind so that our positive minds and actions become completely authentic and spontaneous and directed in a much more beneficial way? So meditation is this tool that opens us up to the world of the mind. As we investigate the mind, we begin to see the nature and pervasiveness of the mind. As we begin to do more meditation practice, more and more slowly, it can dawn on us that there is no other world to us than that of the mind. The condition of our mind shapes how we experience the world. Meditation in all its forms directly addresses the mind, and we can make the decision to develop these wonderful minds of great love, great compassion, and bodhicitta. It's completely in our own hands. So let's meditate first on some more stabilizing meditation to get our concentration going, and then we'll do some meditation on love. So again, with our nice straight back, sitting on the floor or on a chair, either is fine as long as our back is nice and straight and our body is not too relaxed, but relaxed, just nicely relaxed, firm and relaxed. So one trick we can do is to lift up our shoulders and drop them down to take out any tension. Again, put our right hand and our left hand with the tips of the thumbs touching, rest them in our lap. Put our head forward. If we have it up here, then we'll find that we'll get agitated. If we have it right down here, we'll find that we'll get sleepy. So just looking forward down the bridge of our nose is a really good spot. Our eyes, if you're able to just slightly open them, that's great. If you can't, then just gently closed. No strain, just gently closed. Resting our tongue on the roof of the mouth, our elbows away from the torso. And we just let our body soften and relax. Turn our object of concentration to the breath as it enters and leaves the nostrils or the rising and falling of the diaphragm. Clearly make very clear in our mind that our object for this short period is the breath. And we make a strong determination that the breath is our object of focus for this short period. Any thoughts, any sounds, sensations, any kinds of interruptions, we'll just gently let them go like they were the passing clouds in the sky. And bring our attention back to the breath. We'd like we can adopt a tool to help us to focus on the breath. We can count from 1 to 10, with the in-breath and the out-breath counting as 1. We lose concentration at, say, number 3 or 4 or 5, we just start again. While we're doing this, a little tiny part of our mind can be watching out for the twin enemies of a good meditation practice. These are distraction or dullness. We find ourselves becoming sleepy. Just need to strengthen and sharpen our concentration back to the counting, focus strongly on the breath. And if it gets really bad, open our eyes briefly. And also distraction, any thoughts or sounds or sensations that might be drawing our attention away. Let's practice over and over and over until we easily count from 1 to 10. So we aim to establish a regular practice of breathing meditation like this or similar for 10 to 15 minutes, 3 to 5 times a week. Meditation, as I said before, is a learned skill, and after regular practice, it's very likely that you will improve and feel the benefits of more calm, more peace, more stability, more spaciousness, and an interest to learn more. So now in this meditation, we're going to change our object of concentration, and we'll just focus on the out-breath. As we breathe out, we visualize that we release all of our problems, our unhappiness and suffering, any adversity, in the form of black smoke or black light, whatever we prefer, which then disappears into the ground. This black smoke represents any sickness or any causes of sickness, any causes of a short life, any worries that we might have, any anxiety or anger or agitation. Completely leaves our mind and body in the form of black smoke or black light. All negative states of mind and sources of any unhappiness, such as bad memories about times we've been hurt, any resentment, times we might think that we failed, and any accompanying feelings of limitation. Time we breathe out, we see all of these sources of suffering leave our body and mind until they are completely cleared out in the form of black smoke, black light, vanishing into the ground. Completely cleared of all of our worries and concerns, aches and pains, illness, any agitation or stresses. Completely left our body and mind, disappearing into the earth in the form of black smoke or black light. Next, we turn our attention to the in-breath. This time we imagine that each time we breathe in, we take in brilliant, beautiful white light. This radiant white light appears as white light, but it is in actuality all good qualities and causes of happiness, such as joy, good health, long life, and all positive states of mind, such as patience, generosity, compassion, love, and wisdom. With each in-breath, we are totally focused on our body and mind is filled with this white light and these qualities until we are completely full. Body and mind completely full with this beautiful, joyful, peaceful, brilliant white light. Body and mind are completely full with this radiant white light. Now we imagine sending the same beautiful, brilliant, radiant white light to all of those who we love, to our friends and our colleagues, wishing for their happiness and peace and joy, their good health, their long life, all good conditions, everything that they need. Now we imagine the same beautiful, brilliant white light going to every human throughout the world. And also to every living creature. All of their suffering, those we love, friends and our colleagues, every human, every living creature, all of their suffering is immediately dissolved. Immediately they are all filled with this beautiful, brilliant, radiant white light and experience the resultant joy and happiness. Maintain this thought and this feeling for as long as possible. Reflect on our great love. We think, may all living beings without exception have happiness and all sources of happiness. All living beings, just like me, don't want any form of suffering, just want peace and joy. They may be looking for it in the wrong direction, but at the end, they all want happiness and don't want suffering. Recalling again the passing of Paul's mother, Joyce Brooks, and in recognition of the effort of this meditation and this class, we dedicate the positive energy we have created towards more happiness in our life, more good conditions, better health, and also happiness and good conditions for the people we love and for all living creatures. And when you're ready, you can release your concentration. So if you have any questions, you can, there's two ways to go about that. You can either send a question now through chat, or if you would like to ask a question later in the week, you can send it to events@toshita.org marked Anna, and I can answer it next week. Next week we'll explore pathways to inner peace, which is known as the 6 perfections. And if you have time this week, I would recommend some breathing meditation and some meditation on developing the mind of love. So if there are no questions at the moment, have a great week and enjoy the rest of this beautiful day and take care, and I will see you next week if you would like to join then. Thank you.